Hello and welcome to The Steamy, the Scotsman's politics podcast. I'm Alistair Grant, the political editor of The Scotsman, and I'm joined today by David Ball, the Scotsman's deputy political editor, by Catriona Stewart, the Scotsman's education correspondent, also covering politics for this election campaign, by Rachel Amery, the political correspondent of The Scotsman, and by Andrew Quinn, the Westminster correspondent of The Scotsman. I'm struggling to remember everyone's titles here for some reason. Later on in the podcast, we'll have clips from interviews with Malcolm Offord, the leader of Reform UK in Scotland, and Russell Findlay, the Scottish Conservative leader. We're interviewing all the party leaders ahead of next month's election, but we're trying to do something a little bit different and quizzing them while taking part in a hobby or interest of theirs. So, for example, I went to a driving range in Glasgow with Malcolm Offord, where I tried to remember how to hold a golf club. It's been a long time since I've done that. I also went to the beautiful Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum with Russell Findlay, who it turns out is a bit of an art fan, which is certainly not something I expected. But we'll play some of those interviews later on. You can watch the full videos on YouTube. I also went surfing with Alex Hamilton. We've got other interviews planned with the other party leaders. But first, we should probably talk a little bit about the Holyrood election campaign, which is deep in the middle of it. It's been pretty bitter. There's been lots of mudslinging. Where do things stand, David? If you could give a kind of summary of what's happened in recent days and your impression of whether things have actually moved at all.
To be honest, it's been pretty dire, I will say. Like, we're 2 weeks away from polling day and nothing's really changed. It's just been, not sound too glum, but it's just been a series of politicians saying the lines we expect them to say. For John Swinney, that's perfectly fine, because even as a pretty underwhelming poll out today for the SNP, but they're still miles ahead. They don't really need to do much. If he wants that majority, though, he's going to have to make the polls move. Anna Sawa, the impetus is all on him to make the polls move and to make Labour be part of this conversation, genuine conversation about forming the next government. And we've not really seen that from Labour so far, and we've only got 2 weeks left. It's difficult to see where that's going to come from. We've always had a big distraction again down at Westminster, which is not helping Labour's cause, with the Mandelson stuff flaring up again this week. But we're basically just where we were at the start of the campaign. We've had a bit of a bitter row between Reform and Labour, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit. But it's not really changing the polls. This bitter row has been existing between Anna Sawa and Reform since the Hamilton by-election. It's not really gone away. It's just kind of ramped up a little bit, and it's just words. It doesn't really, I wouldn't have thought it's going to be cutting through with voters. So not to sound too downbeat, but we kind of just haven't really moved, and we're still waiting for it to really get into gear. And by the time it does, it will probably all be over.
Andrew, I mean, we should probably touch on that bitter row between Reform and Labour. I mean, this all started when Anna Sawa was sort of having a go at Malcolm Offord during a live TV debate, talking about some of the racism claims that Reform have faced, in particular saying that one of their candidates wanted to deport his children. And Malcolm Offord hit back and said, essentially, kind of that Anna Sawa was saying this in public, but behind the scenes earlier, I think it was in December last year, after the recording of a Question Time episode, had come up to him and sort of suggested that Reform and Labour had to work together to get rid of the SNP. We've then had all sorts of claims and counterclaims, including recently Anna Sawa saying that Graham Simpson, who in the last Parliament, the one that's just ended, was Reform's only MSP after defecting from the Conservatives, had called Malcolm Offord, Reform UK's leader in Scotland, useless, had called Thomas Kerr, a high-profile Reform politician, a weasel. Graham Simpson has denied this, but you were speaking to Thomas Kerr about this, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. So Thomas was doing a bit of a press event yesterday in Mount Vernon in Glasgow in a pub. The pub that's his local, and yeah, I asked him about this. So we've got a short clip here of Thomas talking about it. So yeah, that was Thomas Kerr there. I mean, I think it's maybe the funniest question I've had to ask anyone as a journalist, isn't it? Are you a weasel? Or and then, I mean, I just think it's a great line as well. That he was given assurances that wasn't said at all. I think it probably shows, though, doesn't it, that actually there's a lack of real policy and stuff to be debating here, isn't it? It's like we've not got we've not got loads of big issues to be talking about. And I think the only two really main policies, one is that Reform really wants to slash tax, but they're not going to win, so that's not going to happen. The other is that the SNP want to cap prices in supermarkets, but actually they don't have the power for that to do it. So really we're just in this very odd space where it's just let's slag each other off and there's loads of mudslinging. I think that probably won't help when it comes to getting turnout higher. So it probably benefits Reform in a sense, because they'll do better on a lower turnout. And also, if it looks like nothing's really been done, it's just politicians slagging each other off, surely that kind of helps play into their anti-politics sort of thing.
Yeah, I have to say one of my favourite answers of this election campaign is when Graham Simpson was asked about that weasel comment, obviously denied it, and was then asked by ITV Border what animal he would compare Thomas Kerr to, and he answered that he would compare him to a lion, which is probably the most unconvincing thing I've ever heard in my life.
I know. I don't know why he entertained that at all. Like, I don't know why he was like, that's obviously a ridiculous question, but he enjoyed playing along with it, surely.
Catriona, I wonder what you made of this, because you did a brilliant piece that people should go back and read on the Scotsman website, where you were kind of out in the campaign trail in Glasgow with Nigel Farage. You were the only journalist who was there with him. So you kind of saw up close how Reform are interacting with kind of members of the public. I mean, first off, how did that go? And what do you make of this wider campaign? And the point that Andrew was making there, that instead of talking about sort of big policy ideas, we seem to be mired in this kind of mudslinging and sort of pettiness.
I think there is a real lack of interesting, engaging policy ideas that are capturing the public's imagination, and people are so disenfranchised and fed up. I mean, we know that those are partly the reasons that they're voting for Reform or saying that they're going to vote for Reform, but there's nothing sort of steering them back into a sensible debate about how Scotland moves forward policy-wise, how the cost of living is tackled, education, obviously, big talking point for me as education correspondent at Scotsman, or the NHS. There's none of that happening. And you've got the Fraser Valander Institute saying that the parties are in, what was the phrase, a collective bout of fiscal denial. It's not a good position to be in. Everybody is just making policy suggestions that they hope will win votes rather than actually coming up with any credible ideas that we can get into discussing. But being out with Reform last week was fascinating, because the one topic that everyone in the East End area that we were in was talking about was immigration. And they were very much talking about how Nigel Farage and Reform have created a space now where it's okay to talk about their concerns about immigration. So I asked one man who'd come out of a shop to see Nigel Farage and speak to him whether he'd always had these concerns or whether it was quite a new worry that he had. And he said that he'd had long-running concerns, but he was worried about talking about them. And even with that, when I said to him, why are you voting Reform? Why do you like Nigel Farage? He literally scanned the horizon around him to make sure that nobody was listening, and very quietly said, is it okay to say? And I thought, well, here we go. And of course, it was about immigration. And some of the people that I was speaking to do have concerns that they feel are legitimate. But then there were other folk that I was speaking to who were just saying wild things about immigrants. So one man was saying that he's concerned that the Scottish Government is trying to replace the white population of Scotland with, quotes, Mohammed off the boat. And replacement theory obviously is a thing. YouTubers talk about it, podcasters talk about it. It is a hard right talking point. And that is infiltrating into people's heads. They are getting their news from podcasts, they're getting their news from YouTube videos. And that needs to be countered. But I don't see how politicians on the left and in the centre are going to try and reach these voters and scoop them up and bring them back when there is all this nonsense chat about weasels and lions and mudslinging. And all that does is just benefit Reform, because it distracts from the real issues that we should be trying to talk about.
Yeah. I should say, Rachel, who we're just about to come to now, Rachel Amery, if anyone is watching the kind of video version of this, you are sitting in a car because you are currently at the start of your odyssey. Up north, you're going to be writing about the Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch constituency. What do you I suppose it'd be good to talk about, actually, what do you have planned while you're there in terms of things that people can look forward to reading about, watching, and what are some of the issues at play outside of the Central Belt in Scotland as well? Oh. Has Rachel frozen for everyone else?
Can you just repeat that last bit there, Alistair?
Yep. Do you want me just to ask the question again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you say the question again there?
Yeah. So Rachel, we're coming to you now.
Yeah, I'll just go. I'll tell you who I am. You can see me sitting in a car.
Sorry.
Yeah, you see that I'm sitting in a car just now, and what you can't actually see, and I'm actually in one of the prettiest places in all of Scotland right now, but you can't see because of the technicalities here. So for the next 2 days, I'm going to be going around Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch. It's a really interesting constituency to keep an eye on. It's massive. That's a big problem to begin with. The issues in one part of the constituency are going completely different to parts of the rest of the constituency too. So that's one of the issues here. But it's also going to be a fight between the SNP and the Lib Dems. So in 2021, Kate Forbes won this constituency with one of the highest majorities of any MSP. It was over 15,000 votes her majority was. Absolutely massive. But she is standing down at this election. Now, the SNP are hoping that the Kate Forbes effect will stand true and they will be able to hold on to this constituency. I've just been through Abbey Moor and there is banners from the SNP on just about every lamppost. I spoke to some of the researchers at the Diffley Partnership before I left. They're saying it's an almost 100% chance that it will stay SNP. So they've got reason to be confident, but that's not really the full story. The Lib Dems are coming in here. They've been very, very clear that this is a key constituency seat that they want to win. They are very determined to do well here. They believe they've got the numbers here. And if you look at other polling, the MRP polling that only came out this week suggested that, yes, they will win this seat. And if they do, that could be the difference between the SNP winning a majority and not, or it could be the difference between the SNP being able to form the next government and not. So that's why this seat's really, really interesting. Lots to talk about. Got housing to talk about, healthcare to talk about, infrastructure, tourism, transport. We're also going to Hustings and Portree as well, where we'll get to speak to some of the candidates too. So lots to talk about on this trip to Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch.
Well, sounds like a jam-packed schedule. But as I said, over recent days, I've been talking to Malcolm Offord and Russell Findlay as part of a series of leader interviews in which we try to find out a little bit more about what makes the Scottish party leaders tick, as well as quizzing them on some of the key issues ahead of the Holyrood election campaign. I asked Malcolm Offord about the extraordinary breakthrough his party could be about to make in Holyrood, as well as some of the racism allegations it has faced from critics. That was Malcolm Offord, the leader of Reform UK in Scotland, and the Scottish Tories are on course for a near existential collapse at next month's election. But party leader Russell Findlay says repairing the kind of damage done to the party was always going to be a long-term project. During a visit to Kelvin Grove, I spoke to him about that, as well as the acid attack he faced in 2015 while working as an investigative journalist for a tabloid newspaper. That was Russell Findlay, the Scottish Tory leader, but that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Please stay tuned to the Scotsman's website for all the latest news, comment, analysis, video. There's loads happening and we've got loads more planned before next month's election. Thank you very much for listening.